This free training that I'm about to do reminds me of the time when I first found out about this stuff I'm about to tell you, and I remember being so excited. I was geeked out. You know, I immediately closed my book and I redid my entire program. When I got certified as a personal trainer in 2014, I was still working in the restaurant industry, coming up to like 8 or 9 years, and I was starting to recognize how, as you get higher into the food chain, like the restaurants that you're working in, that the food quality gets better because it's more fattening and you know, that's higher quality. It's more expensive, and I wanted to prove that a chef doesn't have to be fat. What I really wanted to do was to reduce my workload and increase my pay. So like to become a front of the house manager seemed like a legit thing to do, and the first step to take was to become a server first, gain experience, and then work my way up. But I didn't have any serving experience, so if I wanted to get my foot in the door and become a manager, I had to work with managers, provide them something valuable other than, you know, being the best cook in the back of the house. I had to get them results, and when the time's right, then maybe I could pitch them that I wanted to become a server. Okay, so I knew that my managers weren't ready to go on a strict diet. They needed to be on something flexible, a flexible diet where, you know, because in a restaurant you're surrounded by a whole bunch of food. So they needed something that would allow them to still eat that food because, you know, their cravings were too much for them, but make small tweaks to the way they were eating and their eating behaviors so that they could still lose weight. And then so the question became, how do I start? So I had to convince them of those changes that they had to make in order to get the results that they wanted, right? I had to help them understand what they were currently doing wasn't working, and they needed to make small adjustments that would last them and be reasonable and would be actually realistic for their environment so that they could implement those small changes all day. The challenging part though was finding somebody who was willing to give up the temptation, who was ready to control their cravings, because, you know, the environment, we're surrounded by food, and on top of that we have to stand on our feet all day. So by the time they finally got a day off, all they wanted to do was relax. They didn't want to do anything else. It was 5 years ago. Today, if I was still want to work with them, I'd do things a little bit different. We'd have a lot more other things to work on, like getting better sleep quality, reducing stress, like readjusting their habits that they have on their days off. So many different ways I would do things. But I kept studying, and honestly, it feels like I went through a 4-year university, probably because I spent so much time sorting through all that BS information that's out there, separating that from the facts. But you don't have to do that. For instance, you can start optimizing your metabolism with this meal guide, and I'm gonna show you how to do that. There's a saying that goes, you are what you eat. So if that's true, then it's time to reevaluate what you put into your body, right? And I'm sure that's why you wanted the meal guide in the first place. Look, I get it. Sometimes life gets in the way and you probably wake up late, or your boss calls you last minute telling you that you got to come in earlier, or your kid gets sick. And in situations like those, it's a lot easier to get food that's a lot convenient, like from the gas station, or you probably order takeout, right? But the thing is, those foods are carefully engineered so that they cook faster, and they do that because the ingredients are so low quality. And the chances are that your body needs help from undoing all the stress that you've been giving your body from the foods that you've been eating that are cheap, they're convenient, and they're fast. All right, that's the reason of this meal guide. So why do I stand behind this meal guide, this particular one? It's because it was created using low glycemic principles. There's a dozen benefits for eating this way. Like, it supports normal blood sugar levels, it possibly reduces low energy crashes, like how you feel around 2 p.m. or 3 p.m. in your day when you're zapped and you're ready to go home. When you use this meal guide, it's important to know that this is more than just eating foods that are low on the glycemic index scale. Also, it's more than just following foods that you're strictly limited to, okay? None of that. Let's instead focus on low glycemic impact eating. All right, this is going to help you lose weight. It's going to help you fight cravings, control your appetite, and when you finally reach your goals, it'll help you manage your weight so that you don't gain the weight back. Okay, So by now you're probably wondering, what the heck is low glycemic impact at mumbo jumbo, right? So if you're like confused on that term, I have a visual for you that takes no more than 1 minute to explain. All right, now notice the zones. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, yada yada yada. So there's the zones that keep your blood sugar levels in the same range after you eat carbs. That's 1, 2, 6, and 7. To stay there after you eat carbs, these foods need to be low to mid-range on the glycemic index scale. Otherwise, you cause your blood sugar to spike up to like 3 and 4, and then your body absorbs it really quick. Then you have an energy crash at zone 5, and you're zapped. If you're like most people, by now you're probably wondering, all right, now how does that impact me? And I got an example for you. So we have to think about carrots, we have to think about M&Ms, and cauliflower. All right, now let's go back to that scale. So if you ate a mouthful of cauliflower, you'd most likely stay in zones 1 and 2 all the way through 6 and 7 in the normal range, because it has very little sugar in it. And if you ate a mouthful of carrots, you'd see your blood sugar level go up to maybe about a zone 3, right? But it wouldn't really crash so much. Although your body absorbs all the food sugar in it, you won't really see it crash. But then when you had a mouthful of M&Ms, see ya, your blood sugar levels are going to spike all the way to the moon. And then, since they're so cheap, the food sugar is a cheap type of sugar, your body loves it, and then you go all the way to zone 5 again, and then you're looking for more energy because you're zapped, and then this whole cycle continues. But the thing is, who stops at a mouthful of M&Ms? I know I wouldn't. I'm gonna eat the whole freaking bag. So to answer your question, stupid mosquitoes, the impact includes the glycemic load, and that's kind of like the amount of food sugar that a carb has available in it, as well as natural fiber. So M&Ms, because they don't have any fiber, they have nothing but sugar. That's why you're going to have an energy crash. All right, so remember when I was telling you that I was geeking out when I found something out and I closed my book? All right, so research is suggesting that when you control your blood sugar levels, you keep them in a normal zone, that helps your metabolism work optimally. What does that mean? That means fat sizzle baby. All right, 3 more things about this meal guide, then I'll share some additional resources with you. So by now you probably noticed, after you looked at your list, that there aren't certain fruits and veggies on your list, like dried cranberries, like watermelon, like corn, like potatoes. And it's not because they're bad for you, it's because they rate high on the glycemic index. And that's the first thing. The second thing is about the controversy between like rice and potatoes. It's not that they're bad for you. Again, it's the same reasons they rate high on the glycemic index. Sometimes I know like rice and potatoes, they're cheaper, they're harder to let go. So you can still have them, but keep the portions smaller for rice. Try to go for basmati when you can, and mix them with vegetables that are on your list. And the third and final thing about this meal guide is that for everything else that's not on your list, the good foods, the stuff that got you in trouble, like pizza, ice cream, beer, potato chips, all of that good stuff, just remember, protein and fiber at every meal makes losing weight no big deal. And that's all I have for you. So if you'd like to get extra help on how to incorporate a flexible eating regimen, like what my managers needed because they were too reluctant to give in on their cravings, or because they weren't fully committed to following a meal plan, you can make it a lot easier for yourself by starting off slow until you're ready to follow a meal guide 100%. So if you need help with that flexible eating regimen, then go ahead and head over to vitalityventure.com/meal-guide-usher. That's where you're going to find extra resources that complement this meal guide, your new meal guide. All right, again, here's the website, vitalityventure.com/meal-guide-usher.